First, we have to introduce who's on the panel, but you should probably know by now. We have Dr. Paul Kim of Seeds of Empowerment, formerly of Stanford University, who gave the keynote yesterday about smile and well beyond smiles, winks, and hugs. But he inspired us to think about the current status of AI in education and where we're going already. So he's kind of got us a lead there, and so did Dr. Jan Plas today from New York University. And then Kyung-Mi Lee is next to them, who brought a contingent from Seoul National University. And she's a professor there doing qualitative methods and ethnography and other things. And also she's an educational technology expert in addition to that. Theo Bastians, who is a rector of the Open University of the Netherlands, was part of a panel yesterday with Dr. Sam Nadu, and he's been part of many sessions here. This is his like fourth or fifth session he's been part of. So why don't I have each of them briefly reintroduce themselves and what their interests are in terms of AI, what they've done in terms of AI, and then I'll ask other questions. So we'll rotate through a bit. Things maybe you didn't say in your keynotes that you'd like to say, and we'll start here with Paul, and just, what's that? Just a minute each. Yeah.
A minute each.
Yeah, or so.
Okay. Well, from my point of view, as someone who served as Chief Technology Officer for last 30 years, this is an amazing time because if I can talk, I can come up with ideas. Things can be built in a matter of minutes, not months. So again, my point yesterday, imagination is the fuel for innovation. And if we can come up with the creative questions, like you remember the foundational question, the questions that have not been asked, and those are the real value in the age of AI. So hopefully together we'll imagine new future and have our students ask lots and lots of creative questions that can lead to learning, change, innovation. So looking forward to continuing our dialogue in that regard.
Nice to meet you all. I wasn't one of the keynotes, so I may introduce myself again. My name is Kyung-Mi Lee. I'm from South Korea, working at Seoul National University. I start off with EdTech fan, and then I kind of, when my career went through, I wasn't really sure. It didn't really work well in my own teaching and in my own professional context. So I'm respecting these folks that spend the entire career and they're still like being enthusiastic about it. So I turn into a little bit of skeptics. And AI, we're going to discuss that. So I'm pretty sure I'll add something quite different to the table from the other folks. But anyway, at the moment, right now, I'm looking at the tech policies and how the policies start off really well with the great vision. But why and how, in which sense, it didn't really go well as it planned. That has been my area of study for the past 2 or 3 or 5 years. So nice to meet you all.
Well, I'm Theo, and I'm 35 years in the business. Formerly, I'm a professor of educational technology. Started as a young researcher at a technical university doing something with CBT, that means computers in education. At that time, a very exotic place. Only insurance companies and banking was interested because they had the money to do that at that time, in the beginning of the 90s. Overlooking all these decades, I'm more worried than ever. But now I'm for 15 years in administration, so trying to run a university now in the Netherlands, 7 years, before that in Germany, and I'm worried more than ever. We are so not ready for the shift into AI and technology. What I see is a system that holds on to old rules, old didactics, pedagogies, don't have an answer on the new developments. And I see also a lot of professors ignoring that totally, just putting out exams and assignments as nothing happened. I see disciplines like, for example, in management or in law, where 90% of the assignments of students are turned in and written with AI, and we ignore it totally. So what are we testing? What are we assessing? We need a totally new approach on didactics and pedagogy, I think.
Jan Plass, New York University. We just reminisced a few days ago, yesterday, about what our first eLearn or Media conference was that we went to, and mine was in '94. And so I have been through initially computers are going to change education, and then it was the internet that was going to change education, and then it was other things all the way to games and virtual reality. And those of us who have been in the field for a while were always kind of like, yeah, this is not going to change education. It's going to make a small dent, but not a big one, right? And so with AI, as we've already heard, the changes are much more massive on a not just quantitative but qualitative level. And so I have these two thoughts that I'm trying to hold in my head at the same time. On the one hand, I'm incredibly hopeful that we can do great things with AI for learning, especially reaching those that we couldn't reach before, designing for those we couldn't design for previously because it was just too small a group that nobody wanted to spend the time and effort. So there are all these great things that I think Paul will tell us more about. But then I have to agree with the other side, my right side, that I'm not an AI skeptic. I've become a people skeptic. Because it's not AI that's going to do it to us. We're going to do it to us ourselves. And what that is that we're doing to ourselves that worries me is the implementation of new tools we don't understand without thinking about consequences. And that is the case on a personal level. When we start doing more and more and more using generative AI without doing it ourselves, eventually without critically processing what we got as an output and just submitting it as homework. And we're doing it at an institutional level where we're adapting those systems. Schools are adapting AI tools without knowing what exactly they do. I showed in my presentation earlier adaptivity as a black box, and what we're getting are black boxes in which a lot of things are happening that are very cool, and yet we don't quite know what they are. Nothing has been evaluated. And we're kind of facing this situation where we're being handed potentially Pandora's box, potentially something that can solve all of our problem, and we just don't know. But we're so ready to open that box, and so that's something that I would love to hear more questions about and your thoughts about, and what we can do to make smart decisions so that we don't find ourselves in a few years in a situation where we look back and where we say, what were we thinking? We saw all the signs and we still did it, and nobody thought about it.
So I didn't introduce the session. I need to read the title. Generative AI in Education, what did we learn? Where will it turn? So we'll start with the what did we learn, or have we learned? Is there anything the panelists would like to point to that we've learned, in particular past 3 years with Gen AI, or before that with AI in general in education? And I'm looking at the people in the back of the room. You notice a lot of the young people, especially from Japan and Korea, in the back are here to get some advice on what they could do for dissertations. So the second part of the question is, where are the open gaps today where a grad student might try to address, or a young faculty member might be starting a career. So the first, what have we learned, if anything? And then, what are open questions that you would like some people to address and are exciting areas that they might venture into? Anyone can take this on the four of you. Don't all jump in at once. No. Okay. Tio, you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm not sure what we learned. We learned, I think, that we should give it pay more attention to it. I think 3 years ago AI was something it makes mistake, and I talked to people who said, "Nah, I can immediately see that it's turned in with AI, behind it." Now you can't, and I think I totally agree with Jan and his keynote, but I think it's already out of our hands. When I see the discussions in the Netherlands, in the academic discussions, and also in Germany, they are discussing, shall we collaborate with the big tech companies? That's not a question anymore, I think. What would be a plan B? To not do that and even make a bigger gap between education and society? That's what I learned.
Probably I can touch upon that. I have learned that it's too expensive to just try it out. Not only money per se, but I mean we're bringing a lot of edtech companies in. So now education and companies like industry and education is slightly there's very streamlined line. But at the same time, I think a lot of our labor and our effort, and we've been spending years here. And it's so painful. Do you remember how excited we are around 2007 when things were open and then we kind of went through the MOOCs and everything? And by now, based on our expectation, our society should have been so much more better place in terms of equality. Everyone should have access to everything as we planned. But what I'm saying is that I mean, we shall still try, but I think it has been really expensive. So we have spent a lot of teachers' effort and without really direction, and then everyone spent years and minutes and after, and then realized that world is still quite difficult place to live for our marginalized group of small people. So that's what I have learned. Sorry, it's so pessimistic. It's getting worse, I guess.
All right, that means I need to say something uplifting, right? Okay. So I think one thing we've learned from the use of AI and generative AI in particular in learning, I don't even want to say education, is that when applied the right way, we as learning designers have now tools at our disposal that can do things that we never thought we could do before. And so that's the positive side. There are all these other sides that I mentioned, but we have tools at our disposal that do things that we could never do before. And something really interesting happened. Perhaps for the first time, we have technology that is so powerful that it's just our imagination that dictates what we can do with it. And so now we have to imagine possible futures that are the kind of futures we want to go into. And where we have to take charge and can take charge in designing those futures. And I'm sure Paul can tell us about some examples for that. But that to me is the uplifting side of things, right? We have now our imagination as the limit. And that's kind of the challenge to the doctoral students when they ask about dissertation studies. Yes, there's a lot of benchmarking that needs to be done. What can AI do, and how good is it in doing certain things? But just like the first movies that came out were just cameras pointed at the stage and were essentially just recorded plays, and eventually film developed its own language, we need to think about what is it that we are now enabled to do with those tools and really be creative in that and do some blue sky thinking about that. And then, of course, have the other conversations as well.
Is this glass half empty or full? I think we got plenty of water in here. I'm always positive with the technology. As Dr. Kyung-mi said about MOOC 2007, I initiated a MOOC in 2010, which was called Designing a New Learning Environment. You can still Google it and find it. I was able to attract 20,000 students from 170 different countries. And I was working in Tanzania while the whole course was going. I was in Tanzania working and teaching 20,000 students with my smartphone. And 6,000 of them got the Stanford certificate. That's a pretty good rate.
And they were collaborating too with each other.
They were
forming
collaborating,
teams.
they were forming teams, their meetup groups in many different places around the world came up with various projects. Would it be possible without technology? Such a thing? It's not possible without technology. So, as I'm positive, I think technology can make impossible possible, unreachable reachable, if you use it in the right manner. And as I said yesterday, those who were in my session, AI, it's amazing blessing to human race. It's just that it could be most disruptive and destructive, dangerous thing if someone uses it, abuse it, or if you ignore biases and unethical things, if you let that happen. So you remember we're now living in AG or BG? What era are we living in? AG, right? After Gen AI. BG is before Gen AI. So we're now living in AG. And then remember I said that Forbes magazine interviewed me and, hey, students are cheating with AI. Should we let the technology be out there? And I said, whose fault is that? It's not the fault of the students. It's the fault of the professors who give BG exams, BG assignments, BG activities. Why do they continue to do that? That's my problem. And so what I suggest is that you have to learn the strengths, limits, potential, pitfalls. When you know the more about these resources available, and help young students learn about these strange resources, very powerful resources. The more they understand what it can do right or wrong, correctly, incorrectly, what is it called, this term? Meta AI competency. The more students have this meta AI competency, we'll be in better hands. Also, remember about the 6 C's? Why do I emphasize compassion and commitment as future competencies, especially in the age of AI? We do not want to produce students to be just smart and intelligent. We want them to understand the pains and needs of this world. So when they join this journey of making this world a better place for all, that is the right journey. And to me, that is education. That is the purpose. So as an educator, we need to remember, why are we educating? And what does the journey look like? And so I learned a lot. I developed AI integrating coaching system, which guides students' individualized learning pathways and potential career pathways. A lot of coaching, mentoring, that's now possible. Remember about the AI tutor that I had in my Stanford D school class? Professors don't remember what a student asked 2 weeks ago on Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock. AI remembers everything. And as I told you, people said, the student told me that, hey, the AI tutors are more detailed in answers, always available, kind, patient. So we should take advantage. And the time is now. The more we ignore or stay away from it, we'll be in trouble. And that's how I view it. And I'm going to have some more water because my glass is full.
Yeah, can I comment on that? Paul, you could all do this because you were at Stanford University. It was the organization that provided you with the possibilities and the tools and with your salary and all this stuff. That's on a macro level, for me now the threat. Stanford will be around in 50 years because of the reputation and the big names and the quality. But will we all be around? Are all our institutions that healthy? And that's my worry, because I have a different perspective. It's my job to keep a university healthy financially and on quality. And also the enrollment has to be good. And that's my worry. I think there will be, someday, there will be a shakeout. And then only the Stanfords, they will survive for example. But I totally agree on the micro level that AI it gives a lot of possibilities, more than we could ever dream of. So totally. But will the system still be the system in every country? And that's my worry a little bit.
Can I add 2 sentences as well? I think it's kind of interesting that sometimes being human is portrayed as a very positive thing. So in your own poll, in your own little speech, once you said that, oh, humans have compassion and we have commitment, and humans describe it as a very good thing. And then the other side is like human, oh, it's this professor doesn't really care about, like, oh. So I think what it means being human and non-human, I think that for me, it's like putting AI versus human and thinking about like their relationship as if they're a separate thing. I think that's already kind of off a little bit. So I think we are already entangled with AI. I'm not saying that we should use it because we're just like living with it. But now it's really time for us to think about what human means. We can't just have this romantic discourse about human, but at the same time, we don't have to negative of human. But there is something so much more complicated that I think we really need to pay attention to.
Good. I like that.
Well, since almost everybody has beaten up on Paul, I'm gonna pick that too. So Paul said one thing that I thought was really interesting, which is why are faculty members still giving BG assignments and BG teaching in AG times? And I think that's exactly the problem that we're currently dealing with, which is, should we really expect from every faculty member at every institution to, on their own, rethink what learning in their discipline looks like? That has never happened before. We always had certain standards, certain curricula, certain ideas of what teaching should look like. You were trained that way by your own educational system, by your own mentors, and now you were doing it in the classroom yourself, right? And when we are facing a new technology like AI that makes the basic essay writing course essentially completely unusable in the way it's been taught, we need to not say to that instructor, often an adjunct instructor, hey, why don't you reform your curriculum? We need to have a national or international conversation about what are best practices now. And there is a little bit of that coming up. There are a few examples coming up here and there. But we need to find a way to having that conversation while the revolution is happening with AI. And that can't be stopped. That is going to happen, for better or worse. But we need to engage all faculty members who teach at all levels in saying, let's rethink what is worth teaching, how we're teaching it, what is an acceptable way of using AI, and where is it not acceptable. And then we need to communicate that to the students, because we had one person in the panel earlier from Pakistan sharing that some first-year medical students are already coming in, and when they're given an assignment that they can't use AI for, they just sit there and don't know what to do. And that is going to happen more and more and more. And that, to me, shows a way of using AI tools that is not where we want to go, right? And so there is a way of using it in a way to augment human intelligence, but we don't want to replace human intelligence, right? And that is, I think, what we're all talking about, and where we can't leave that up to the individual faculty member to find a solution.
So, did you have a final comment before I...
It will be long answer. So.
Okay, so you'll have a chance here in a second. So we've been getting at the human side here a bit, and you may have recognized or read Dr. Plas's bio in the program. He worked with or helped with refugees, people in Turkey coming from Syria and in Lebanon. There are a number of organizations trying to help refugees out to get educational opportunities through this open world that has become a bit more closed today. But and my podcast show is called Silver Lining for Learning. If you can go to 250 episodes, we probably have had 10 related to refugees or people disadvantaged in other different parts of the world, in particular Afghanistan, how people are creating online programs for girls and young women who don't have access now the Taliban has taken over in Afghanistan. So we have to think about the human element within and what technology can do. What Paul didn't mention is he's won awards for his work in Israel and Palestine, having kids between Israel and Palestine write write stories across borders, and that's vitally needed today. He's done a number of those kinds of things. What Paul also didn't mention in his MOOC, he created an ecology of learning in that MOOC, and he had some people who didn't have access to technologies or didn't have large bandwidth, and he had cohorts of people translating contents to different languages on their own, just spontaneously doing this. He had to create content that they could access and translate it to the language that they did understand. There was a lot of things that was happening in that one special 20,000 student MOOC on designing a new learning environment. If you want to read about it, he's got a chapter in my book. I'm happy to send it to you, but I just wanted to mention that there's a lot happening behind the scenes of each of the people here, each of the people in the ed tech field that we don't often hear about. We just hear about the technology side and not the human side, not the extension, not the globalness, not the perspective taking, not the social cognition that's happening and all this. We don't necessarily study those things. They're not looked at. It's not an exam score to increase one's social cognitive awareness, one's perspective taking of people in another part of the world and be able to stand in their shoes. Unfortunately, we have people who want to close the world, as Kyung-mi was pointing out, and not maintaining this momentum that we had in the 2000s and late 2000s towards more open borders, educational borders, if you will. I don't know, I've babbled a bit here, but each of these people have been involved in unique things that aren't even going to come out today. I recommend that you write them an email after this and ask for their papers and things. Paul maybe has a comment now. I'm not sure.
I forgot, but I also mentioned about the LLM, portable LLM. Do you guys remember the little box that runs on battery? So that even you go to a place where there's no reliable electricity or internet, you can still do ChatGPT, portable LLM. That's the kind of things that I like to do, and that's what I will continue to do for the rest of my life. You know, I like to go to places where there are a lot of amazing stars waiting to rise in those rural areas. Kids are so creative. It's just that they don't have the opportunity to shine. All you have to do is just go, show them, give them the tool, resources, they can shine. And I see a lot of future engineers and future amazing inventors in those little communities. So although I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, but now I'm spending more time and longer term in those underserved communities and marginalized communities. And then I involve young students like Ian, like some of you who were in his session. He's a 16-year-old boy who doesn't go to school. He travels with me to different parts of the world. Every Saturday morning, he volunteers to teach Kenyan village kids. He tutors them English with those stories that we published from Palestine and other places. Things like that. There's so many human values that we like to cherish. And we want young kids to grow with compassion and commitment. And we want them to join the journey. And that is, in my view, is education. And what I'm doing in Kazakhstan is also very related to this as well. The title of this whole program in Kazakhstan to train 600,000 students is AI and entrepreneurship. As Chris Dede at Harvard said that we are preparing our students for the wrong future, I agree. I think that we cannot just train them to go to school the same way that they've been in the BG world and expect that there will be a job waiting for them. I don't think so. They have to create their own job. That's why they need entrepreneurship mindset from very young age. And that's what I like to do. And I am calling all of you to join me. I have so many things to do and so many meaningful and fun things that you can be part of. So I welcome all of you.
So you got to the future here, unless Jan wants to jump in here with a comment first. Go ahead.
If I may.
Yep.
A panel is boring when everybody agrees, so let me ask you a question. This sounds a little bit like one LLM per child. So what have we learned from OLPC that you are doing differently?
So I was the evaluator for Uruguay's OLPC, the whole national evaluation. The problem was that when the notebook computers were given to the schools, The teachers were afraid that they may break them, so they did not even open them. And then there was no training, proper training for the teachers. So when it goes like a massive scale, but they do not understand the whole ecosystem. So my point that I made a lot in many international venues and conferences is that you have to look at the whole ecosystem. You cannot just look at one single problem, try to solve it. There's no silver bullet solution. So ecosystematic view means you have to understand what is the incentive for the teachers, the principals, the parents, students, administrators, the whole ecosystem. And I came with a term called the PCR. I always come up with terms. Program cohesion ratio. When I used that program cohesion ratio for Uruguay, it was very low, meaning that there was no cohesion in that project. So when I introduce these new technology tools or AI in those underserved communities or any communities, I always encourage everyone to look at the whole ecosystem, not just the one single problem.
It's okay. I have it. I do agree with you. At the very small scale, as you described. So I think it's pretty cool that we focus on little community, but I want us to think about bigger picture, what's going on around the world as a dominant discourse at the moment. Even when you finished, Paul, your keynote yesterday, you had last slide about AI will make everything efficiency. So it's like efficiency-driven future innovation. So while we're paying really a lot of attention, putting labor into helping little community and little people, small number of people, we can see a lot of miracle. But my question is like the difficulty I've been having for the past two decades is that the global economy, the political economy is going so much faster to do their own thing, which is totally marketized and then totally efficiency oriented, and humanity there is like, I think that for me, although I'm not that old compared to other experts, but
Thank you.
yeah. But throughout my entire life, only thing I have seen is that we're getting more and more isolated, and then it's like alienated within this capitalist society. I don't want to throw this capitalism as like big term, but I think we have to. Yeah, so I still appreciate that I agree that we have to put effort into the small scale changes, but I would be really happy if we can see that small change will be connected to the bigger society and then kind of somehow stop this monstrous, fast-growing, efficiency-oriented like marketization, always around tech. So it's okay. Last sentence is so sad for me because we've been sitting here. We do care about education. We've been talking about all these democratic ideas. However, at the end of the day, the society has been changed the opposite way, and we've been seeing that. So are we going to be happy within our small class and talking about individual teachers or small scale changes, or do we have to do something better or more critical and shout it out to the world saying that entire thing should stop?
Theo has his microphone, so I'm sure he has a...
Yeah, I want to respond to that. I totally agree, but we cannot stop or we cannot slow down the pace of innovation in the world. So that won't happen. But we should, and I'm coming to the half-full glass, we should be proud and loud on what we are doing. I was in Sam's panel yesterday, and it was especially about distance education. If you see the amount of work that has been done the last decades only at open universities that are open, so don't have pre-exams, give second chance education to millions of people all around the world. That's a good thing. So we are in the business of changing lives. That's what I said yesterday. And that's going to continue for sure.
So we need to move to question 2 at some point, and then open up to the audience. So we'll try and get quick responses from each panelist to this second question. on the future, which Paul and Jan has been pointing us to, and so Kyungmi and Tio as well. So first, two-part question. What one or two or three things do you see coming in the next year or two that are kind of obvious to you but that the audience might not be aware of? And secondly, what would you rather see happen? What would be your ideal world of happening? What do you see practically or pragmatically it's going to happen? But what would your ideal world in terms of AI in education?
In one sentence, I would say stop
You have more than
teaching.
a sentence.
I want to make it really short. Stop teaching. Stop teaching. Start coaching your students. That's all I want to say. Do not teach.
I might slightly disagree with that, but we do see. I do see that we will have more and more and more AI tools coming our way that promise more and more things and that look very compelling, and where we have less and less capability of really evaluating what they are actually doing, and so that will raise the bar on asking how are we as educators supposed to use AI and what for, and so to me, I want to throw the challenge back at the young early career researchers here in the audience to say, we need to stop playing catch up. We're still running behind and we're trying to say, what can it do? What if I used it for this, that I used something else before, now I use AI for that? And we need to do, and in that sense, Paul is really the example here. We need to get ahead of the wave and we need to say, what can we do that makes the world a better place? And for that, we need to understand what the problems are that we're currently facing in education and ask what solutions can AI provide? And what I currently see and what I expect to see more of is a tool, an AI tool, in search of a problem. And so instead of a solution in search of a problem, and we need to find out where the actual problems are that are worth solving. And so that is up to our profession, and that's, forget the teaching part. As a researcher, as a theorist, as somebody who works empirically, we need to start asking those questions because otherwise we'll be always running behind the wave and what we're doing is already obsolete by the time we're done.
Okay. Let me try to be a bit more optimistic here. So I think things will be faster and things will be more competitive. So probably that's a good thing for some people, but not for everyone. So I hope that the future I want is that, and another thing, very good thing is that I think I think it's most critical. Ever since the EdTech started from 1960 maybe, I think this is the moment that where people are actually genuinely having a lot of concerns and fear. I think that's good things. At least we can have much more better conversation. So what I hope for is that it can be good for more people, but especially good for those people who are already underserved. But to do so, I have to kind of repeat what I said, that our community should have a bit macro perspective, trying to see what's going on rather than, so kind of going a little bit step out of the box of our own teaching and learning and individuals that we are dealing with. I think like kind of being aware of how society as a whole is going. We can't change it. I totally agree with you, Theo. However, at least being aware of it, and then our efficiency discourse is like where it fits in, and whether we really want that to be fit in that or not. I think that can be questioned, and I think that we are actually having this critical conversation ever more than any ever. So I think that's a good thing.
For me, it will be hybrid education will be everywhere. We think the world is maybe already a hybrid, but it's not. We are in EdTech, so for us the world looks like this, but hybrid education will be the standard, also in high schools. I think new generations don't accept it anymore, a talking head in front of a classroom. They won't do that anymore. So, and I agree with Paul says, stop teaching. We have to redefine the human touch in education. And maybe it's coaching, but maybe it's something different. But the change will be there through the whole system, I think.
Anything else? We'll go to audience questions. Okay. Well, Sam and Tian, go ahead. You can both ask.
Well, we troublemakers here, So, yeah. Some time ago, Curtis had Bob Cosmer, Robert Cosmer, in his session, in his Silver Lining session. When I look at this kind of conversation, I would I'm reminded of so many things. So that we could have had the same conversation in 1980, and the same sorts of issues. In 1983, Bob Cosmer and Richard Clark wrote the article, the classic article, "Will Media Influence Learning?" And some people argued that media will never influence learning. So I'm trying to throw that out to you guys to think about that. How, 40 years after now, right? 43 years after now, what has changed? Are we asking the same kinds of questions? Have we got an answer for those kinds of questions?
One or two of you want to respond to that?
Well, the Clark-Cosma debate was never really a debate. It was like parallel play, where one was a learning scientist and the other one was an educational psychologist, and they were having a conversation that kind of never really became one, because one was talking about media effects and the other one was talking about media affordances. So I think we are not having the same conversation, because at the time we thought computers were going to change education. And if you read up about it a little bit, that impact has actually been minuscule. Right now, you just have to look around and you realize everything is changing on a fundamental level. So this is the first time that I am saying this technology will change everything, because I'm already seeing it. So we're way past this conversation, I believe, and we're in completely new territory, at least as educators are concerned. And the one recommendation, I was going to save it for the end, but since I have the microphone, the one recommendation I have for all of you, if you haven't read any cyberpunk novels, Neil Stephenson, William Gibson, or the Three-Body Problem, they have thought about all of those things. They have already envisioned the future we're about to step into. And if you want to know what it looks like, have a read. You'll be amazed. The Diamond Age.
Okay, Tio, and then we'll go to the next question.
I partly disagree. I think the computers from the 80s on, they changed education, but more in the delivery modes. And for example, in my field of distance education, it changed a lot. We couldn't think of it in the 80s. We didn't have online learning. We sent out materials to people, and they go to study centers, and then they took a test. So computers change a lot, but only, I think, in the delivery modes, not in the head of people or that.
We have another question. We're way in the back. Way in the,
Okay, yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your presentations and for enlightening us and for all your efforts. If you're familiar with Alex Garland's novel and later became a movie, Deus Ex Machina, it says there that AI or machines are only as good as its creator. So in a philosophical sense, how do you see AI now and all these movements, and how do we guarantee that their philosophy is something that will create kindness, compassion, uplift, positivity, and not something that will destroy all of us? Thank you.
I'm having microphone right now, so I will say something. I think going back to my earlier point, that I think we can't just say human is using AI as a tool anymore. So I think it's not really whether it will change this way or that way according to human. For me, more like human is already kind of sucked into AI, or AI is sucked into human, and then I think entire logic of society is like kind of moving us toward the direction it has been always going through. So yeah, that will end with the, again, pessimistic ending that it's gonna go pretty bad, destroy us all as a humanity, but I probably have to shut up by now. But thanks.
Trying to say something uplifting.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, that's right. So we're currently dealing with narrow AI. And we're dealing with, as large language models, we're dealing with something that I think of more as a mirror that we're looking into than anything else. And like so many others before, we just can't stop looking at our own image in the mirror, and we're just so in love with it. And that is nothing in comparison when we have artificial general intelligence, which will probably be beyond our own human capabilities. And so the fact that we're already having trouble dealing with narrow AI, and we haven't even seen AGI, makes me worried that just philosophically, just as society, the way we ask questions about the future, we're not having the right conversations. We're having all the wrong conversations. Can I use it to fix this little problem? Can I use it to even reach these audiences without thinking about the consequences? And it's really time for professional societies to say, let's start having this conversation. Let's make this a topic. Let's bring together people from around the world to say, what are our values? What are our visions for the future of learning? Right? And yes, let them learn on their own, and we're the coaches, but we have learned from constructivism that just letting people loose and say, hey, learn on your own is not getting us very far, right? So there needs to be a guidance, there needs to be scaffolding, there needs to be a value system that supports all of that. And for all we can see, the values are eroding every day, right? So we need to actively work against that, and we need to have a conversation about it that, maybe a society like this or a conversation like this could be the starting point for.
We have a question in the way back here in the room. Paul, did you have a comment first? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember what I said in the later part of my presentation about how do the people in DeepMind train their AI models these days. You remember that they do not use human best practices anymore. They let the AI compete and come up with a better performance. So if you put human performance in the AI model training, now the whole system is degrading. So that's where we are now. So that's a point that I wanted to make. So the AI is now trained with a self-reinforcement training models. And then in terms of agentic AI, what we are using, ChatGPT and cloud and things like that, is just the interaction and chatbots. But these agents, there will be more agents in our daily lives that are handling things. And you let the AI agent do things for you. So for example, when I develop something, I do not code every single line anymore. I just tell the agent, hey, this is what I want, do it this way. And don't make any mistake. Here's the protocol you have to follow. Do not make a mistake. I put that protocols in there so that the AI agent does not think by itself, doing things and making mistakes. So how you define the AI agent that you will be working with, maybe let's just call it AI assistants for you. You will have one of your assistants, maybe many assistants in your life, in daily lives. So how do you put the conditions and parameters, the environment settings, those becoming very important. If you do not have the safety protocols, etc., agent will make decisions, like the movie Odyssey. Inefficiency, let's kill all humans, it will be more efficient. Things like that will happen if you do not have that kind of protocols established. So that's, again, you have to have the meta AI competency to be able to have that safety protocols and making sure that AI doesn't make its own decisions, think that it's more efficient, even though it could be harmful for human beings. Now, with the AI, I mentioned teaching, no teaching but coaching a lot, because I believe in coaching that enables the educators to understand what the individual interests are, what the individual talents are. If you know more about individual differences, then you can have a better learning experiences designed for each individual student. That's why the current education system where everybody goes through the same conveyor belt and become the same product at the end, this day is over. That's BG. What we need is to understand each individual student and build unique learning pathways for them so that they can be best they can be. If you Google Paul Kim Stanford, you'll find the first YouTube video, Paul Kim was bottom 1% in his school years. You'll find that video, you watch that video, you will know what I had to do to get out of that school and get out of the situation. I had to exercise my self-regulation a lot, and then I invented things. As a result, I was terrible, but when I wanted to learn something, when I had a real curiosity and questions, I was able to do that because I found the question that I wanted to answer. So we need to give them the questions that they want to answer, and that starts from coaching, not from teaching.
I'll stop you there. Good. Sarah has two questions up by her. We got one back here. I'm hanging out with the young people back here. Go ahead.
Thanks for addressing me as a young people.
Two with Sarah, and then one with Tia, and we'll be the fourth.
Yeah, thanks for the sparking debate. I'll keep my questions short. When I say I study education technology, my friends and my family and my other colleagues ask me, what do you think? They used to ask me, what kind of competencies do we need to develop? 3 years ago, 2 years ago, they did that. And every time I tried to answer, it kind of failed because the development of the AI always superseded that expectation. And now they start not asking me any more questions, what kind of competencies I have. So that makes me wonder, and also want to ask you, can I still pose myself as like an expert or a future researcher who can prescribe what kind of competencies will be still valid in the future? How can I say that? I'm already starting to losing credibility among my audiences. So what should I do from this?
We get one or two people from the panel to answer, then we'll move to Sarah's person. Go ahead.
Well, what I said earlier about us being really needing to be ahead of the wave means we need to be able to envision future learning situations, learning scenarios, coaching scenarios, if you like. But we need to be able to envision what that looks like. And that means we need to have competencies of envisioning new forms of learning, more powerful forms of learning, more engaging forms of learning. And if you leave that up to the AI, you're not going to get what you want to get. The AI is good at certain things, but not at inventing completely new things. And so the competencies matter more than ever, but they're shifting. That's absolutely right. But you know what? They have been shifting for decades. That's not new. Competencies have always been shifting. Learning has always been lifelong, at least since the industrial age and after that. So we need to learn more, and we need to learn the higher level understanding of how we think, how we feel, how we learn, and so on, so that we can design the tools that help learners in the future.
One more person up there want to answer this one?
I hope that we are still experts. I mean, after all these years, but so I think Paul has pointed out that the human values, for the first time in our history, actually came into much more serious element of the capability of human in this era of AI. So probably we can be human experts with the human nature, which is probably we may fail to be recognized as experts because of some other kind of non-human figures are better than us in many other ways. But I have to agree with, for this matter, I have to agree with Paul that as a human, among human, actually still we have to be experts, like thinking about it ahead as fast as we can, and then still be able to say something on it rather than, let's just give up, just follow AI. We can't do that. So.
Okay, next question. I think it's Sheila Jaganathan from the World Bank.
Thank you. I represent the international development space, World Bank, etc. So one thing that's, I think we all, first of all, thank you for the rich set of comments. One thing we need to underscore is the equity aspect of this, because we don't want to create a third divide, a third digital divide. So that's going to be critical for those people who don't have everything that we are lucky enough to have. I just wanted to also touch on, just adding to what you said on what I would love to see in the AI education space over the next 2 or 3 years is, I made a note, emotionally and socially aware tutoring agents. like Paul, Kim, and many of you said, but with that emotional and social awareness, because if you're really a tutor, you need to bring in that compassion and understanding and everything that Paul said so beautifully as the goal of education.
So I'm going to have to stop you there to get an answer. We're out of time, actually. We're a couple, so
Okay.
state your question then. Yep.
Sure.
Go ahead, Sheila, state your question.
No question. I just
You just want, okay. Do you have a reaction? Anyone have a reaction to that? If
Yes.
not, Sarah's got another question there. Is up, right?
They will hold lunch for us. We'll be okay. Yeah, he has a question. Go ahead.
Okay, yep.
Okay, thank you. I have my problem is I think there's been an awful lot of the acronym FAFO going around on this, and I assume you know it. Fuck around and find out. And there's been an awful lot of the first two letters going on, and not a lot about finding out. And a number of my colleagues, and I observe a lot of colleagues around, are basically trying to see if they can just ignore this and it goes away. Like a lot of other revolutions before it, AI will just go away. Comments on that, and how do we deal with that?
Tio.
That's what I said in the beginning. I see a lot of professors ignoring it totally. It will. I still have 5 or 6 years to retirement. It will last my time or whatever. Not ready to move anything. So there's another thing we didn't talk about today. It's changing universities. And you know also the saying, not changing a university is like moving a graveyard. No help from inside. That's what you're pointing out.
Tian.
Yeah, actually, what I'm going to say is very related to Sheila's comment on the emotional and, what was the other word? Social and emotional awareness. So I've been listening to many debates and discussion on AI, and similar to this is very heated. But I think we all forgot about one thing, which is, have we talked about enough about the mental readiness of the people to live in this era? Because when we now, like in this hype, we have 8 billion people in the world now, 8 billion people who are very heterogeneous. The reason I'm asking this, because a few months ago in Indonesia, it's viral, someone got married to Siri. He proposed to Siri, she accepted it, and he got married to Siri with, the official from the religious court, with the parents blessing it, Yeah, seriously. And we were wondering what happened, and I was talking to other colleagues from Brunei. I said, what happened to the parents? How come they gave him the blessing? Or maybe the parent is just afraid that he's going to commit suicide. So they just went along, and everybody was like, this is about mental health, right? So we have maybe billions of people who are like that. So as educators, have we thought about that? Have we talked enough about that? Have we put efforts to understand and to bring everybody, no one left behind, in the wagon? I think it's our responsibility, but I rarely hear this aspect of the discussion about AI. So I just want to get the comment from you.
Any comments? We have another question here, and then we're going to probably, do you have one over there on that side?
Well, very brief comment. If you ask if we're mentally prepared to deal with AI, then just think about whether we're mentally prepared to deal with something as simple as not continuously watching TikTok or Instagram, and we're not, right? So no, we can't even get away from short-form media. So no, we're not prepared. But you said something else that I find needs to be addressed, which is you said we as educators have a responsibility. Of course we do. But as educators, we have always been expected to solve all problems of society ourselves. Correct. And that's not our job. We are supposed to support that, but there are parents involved, there are institutions involved, there are supposedly political leaders involved to help solve the problems of society. And so if we think as educators we can do that all on our own, then we once again will fail, because we need the support of society, and we need to solicit that support and really call in that support if we want to be successful. And who you get married to is not something that as an educator you can affect. It has never worked before and will never work now.
One more panelist want to address that question?
I was going to say something, forgot because of your talk.
If not, we can go to the last question. What I'm going to do after this last question, we get some responses, then I'm going to go around the room with the microphone, and Sarah's going to go around and get 3 words from this conference. Any 3 words. Fun, fun, fun. I had a great time. Whatever 3 words you want to give us as a closing activity for everyone. Even the panelists will participate. But let's get the final question here from Pakistan. Both, they're sitting, they both have final. So why don't you ask both questions, okay?
Okay, I go first. And I think our focus is on the relationship between humans and technology and AI. So I want to get a sense of what you think about. What do you think the relationship between, what's the possible and probable and preferable future will be like as a human? And so if we understand what are the role of a human in the future, then we can direct how we should educate or whatever, whoever wants to be educated. That's my question.
One of you want to take a stab at that?
Do you really want to know? That takes away all excitement of life. That's a question that we can't answer, I think. Not? What would you prefer to be?
Paul wants to give us. Let's hear if Paul's going to answer this.
I think I don't know if you remember what I said about 6 C's with AI and humans. We want to collaborate with AI and communicate with AI and be creative with AI and understanding the value of compassion and commitment and to all work together to make this world a better place for all. I think we can do that. We have to do that. We cannot ignore where AI is or whether it's going to make any change or not. I mean, that's way beyond. We are way beyond that already. So we should collaborate with AI, and then the 6 C's are the most important competency that I believe that we have to help students develop together.
If you're writing them down, I think he skipped over critical thinking. Was it the 6th one?
4
right?
C's and then 2 C's.
Yeah. Okay. Last question here. State your name and your question.
Thank you. So my name is Azra, and I'm from Pakistan. I actually have 2 questions very quickly. Paul, you mentioned that kids will need to create their own jobs, and I just wanted to know, what do you think about the concept of universal basic income? Do you think that that concept has any possibilities in after AG era? So that was one, and the other is with increased use of AI, the risk of surveillance is also growing, and it can potentially be a big issue in some parts of the world. And so my question is, what safeguards currently exist, for universities or for us to protect us or from our data privacy? So address the issue of increased surveillance, particularly in the context of when you talked about refugee populations and other sort of regimes.
Thank you. Got 2 different questions. Anyone could respond to either question.
Yeah, the first question about the competencies that students need to have, and which is to create their own jobs. If they just go to the regular schools 9 to 3 and then learning the way that they are learning without thinking about the future, without building the competencies of the future, I think it's much riskier pathway, in my view, right now in the era of AI. So I think they have to have the entrepreneurship mindset to think about what is the best that I can what are the potentials that I have? Get the best out of me and be me. And I think that will make you, as a student, the most unique person, because you have so much gift that you have. And then just be you will make you very competitive in the future market. Don't try to be just N+1. Okay, not just another one. I don't think it's going to be helpful in the age of AI.
Anyone
The
else?
second question?
Yep.
I want to live in Paul's world. I find something really interesting where we're talking about AI in education and you're asking all of these societal questions, which tells me that we have this really deep-seated doubt, maybe even fear about what AI will do to us as a society and as humans. And we're just some educators who are trying to do our best, right? And you are educators who are trying to do your best. So the fact that you are asking these questions means there are no answers right now in society, and that is to me an indication of a real problem, right? And I'm really sorry to say I have no idea about any of the things that you're asking and how to solve them. Are we protected? Absolutely not. Is our data safe? Absolutely not. And the more I talk about it, the more depressed I get, so I'm going to stop. But we are facing we're having a lot of potential with AI, and we're facing a lot of problems, and we're currently focusing more on the potential than on the problems, because then you're a skeptic, and you're not supposed to be a skeptic, right? But we need to ask the right questions, and we need to broaden the conversation.
I think classroom is society. So there's nothing like society is like somewhere out there in classrooms. It's like small society. Everything is happening in society. I really agree with your concern because a lot of teachers in South Korea, I will make it very brief, just 1 minute, but a lot of South Korean teachers, they've been refusing this new creature that government has created in South Korea, which is called AI-powered digital textbook, because they don't want to be surveilled. So since they had to use it every single day, what they teach, how they teach, what they have done in terms of their students' assignment and the students' attainment, it's going to be all recorded. So teachers were actually standing up saying that I don't want my way and practice of teaching to be recorded every single day in that stupid box. So, oh, sorry. So anyway, it's not that stupid, but anyway. So in South Korea, that because teachers were resisting, actually we decided not to take it. So I think to answer your question, I don't really know the answer, but I think that as a teacher, I want to believe that within our little cosmo society that we should have choice whether we want them to use our data and surveil us or not.
Yeah, that's what I meant in the beginning of the cracks in the system. What Paul said, just sending somebody to a regular school and have the formal education will not be enough in the future anymore. Will it be just to be you're unique, you or me? Employers are also not waiting just for the me's. They also have, there will still be an economy, you know, so you always have to see. But the questions are, for the future, are not to answer, I think.
So we had 2 exec board members for the eLearn conference on the left, and on the right, 2 keynotes from this conference, and they did a fabulous job addressing so many different directions that you all took us to. Give a big round of applause for everyone. Wow.